Alright, folks, welcome back. It is day 12 of WaniKani. 皆さん、お帰りなさい。今日は、12日目です。So, we got to level 2 yesterday, unlocked tons of new stuff. I guess we unlocked all the radicals. It looks like all the radicals get front loaded right away at each level, and then you get a little bit of kanji overlaps from components from the previous level at the same time. Looks like we have 100 reviews. Let's hop right in. Oh, I realized you could close that. All right. Okay, so vocabulary, radical, could I vocab, pass, radical, kudasai, could I think we're gonna truncate it. Yeah, I'm gonna truncate my recall a little bit here in the interest of time. This is the vocab, so wait. Radical, pass. Pass. Radical. On a roll. Oh no. Oh, there, Gecko. Yeah, level 2. Level up. Pass. Radical. Ito. Right. E-man's toe. Stand? Oh no. Wait. Stand. Writing. Desk. Writing desk. Oops. Doggo on big guy. Oops. It's a crown. Pass. Is it a pass? Pass. Count people in jeans. Pass. Rice patty. Bean coal. Right. Coal at Tofugu. Out in jeans. X marks the spot. Santa-san at Nintendo. How did they go about this? Rock and roll, right? Look. Ah. Sorry. Oh. Oh, I keep typing. I typed life again. I typed life yesterday to life something. Okay. Okay. Radical. Pass. This is a pass. Radical. Evening containing drops. Right. Evening containing water. Dirt. Ground. Cross. Saw. Right. Saw. Watashi wa hayai ne. I guess. Yeah. Hayak. Yeah. Yeah. You're early. Welcome, welcome, Iris. Ohio. Ohio. Goku is not a pass, I believe. It's the devil's number. No. The meaning is a pass. You have to differentiate. When I said pass, it was for the meaning. And then Roku, I said roken roll. That's actually the meaning for the read. So there's pass for the meaning and pass for the read. They're two different things. So you have to pay attention to what it's asking. The meaning is a pass. It's always 6. So the radical is 6 and the kanji is 6. I don't think the meaning is pass either. Rok is not a radical. Oh yeah, that's fair, actually. Rok is composed of lid and fins, so that's fair enough. The devil's number is still a pass. It's still 666. But Rok and roll is the thing. So it's still a pass by what you're saying. But I already set the non-pass mnemonic for Roku. Although you weren't here when I was talking about black mages, probably. But I don't pass it either way. But it's still a pass for me. If you're doing 6. I'm gonna have to check on your thing about regarding it's not labeled as a pass for kanji. I'm pretty sure it still is. But well, we'll check after the 100. Oh, whoops. Pass or radical. Whoops. Not radical. Wait. Oh, the radical name. Oh, cross. Let's see. This is a pass. Fuji-san. I don't know if you know exactly what I mean by pass, but there's pass for various things. And there's also pass for mnemonics. This is a pass for mnemonics. And a pass for read. Vocabulary. Radical. what did they use for? Huh. 你好，你好，朋友，朋友，跟很很久很久没看你的 I don't remember how to say stream, but those 你的汉语学习怎么样啊？不错，我的中文，我的汉语学习不错不错，现在我用汉字 Hero 学习字，right 汉语字，Duolingo Chinese doesn't have any new things left, so we're kind of just practicing with Duolingo Chinese at the moment, and then we're gonna be 我用电脑游戏for studying Chinese in the future. So we're just gonna play 玩电脑游戏 for that purpose. But we'll talk about it later. And in terms of, I don't know what LLM is. I don't know how you say LLM, but ChatGPT, right? So we're planning on other projects with ChatGPT in the future. 我还没有打算做什么学习中文。what was 日 oh whoops I mean not 日 but what was the Xiping, or is it Xiping or Xiping? I mean Xiping sounds kind of okay. Video. Oh, I also don't know how to say stream. Oh, okay. How you say video? Is it Xiping? 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 Shiping? Oh no, Shiping. Sorry, Shiping. No, Shiping sounds awful. Maybe like Shiping. I'm like matching all the tones in and out to see if anything fits, but I haven't used the word video in a like I don't even think Duolingo introduced the word video. Is 视 oh 视频 oh 视频 I like it. I'll have to remember that in the future. Oh, 电视 yeah. Oh, that's a good, yeah, that's a good comparison. Thanks. Yeah, 电视 that helps a lot actually. If I remember 电视 I should remember 视频. I don't remember using ping anywhere yet. Yeah, how's it going? Now I'm trying to remember whatever mnemonics this guy gave me. Gave me for Nietzsche. Oh yeah, Nietzsche was the mnemonic. Nietzsche. And then Jitsu. How did Jitsu work? G2 reading. Oh, G2 reading is kind of rough. We'll get something else for later for Jitsu, but yeah. I actually read the Wikipedia page on Nietzsche. I still don't quite understand what Ko's beef is with Nietzsche. Like, this mnemonic is suggesting that Frederick should be burned by the power of the sun, but I'm not entirely sure. Like, the closest thing I can think of is this person's thing about existential crisis, like the existentialism, and then maybe that has something to do with the existence of people with respect to a solar body like the sun. I have no idea what the beef was. Like, it said he philosophized one too many things about the sun, so I have a distinct feeling it has something to do with his extensive philosophy on like existence and whatnot. I know very, very little about Friedrich Nietzsche. Nietzsche. Anyways, let's keep going. Oh no. I'm not sure if I remember what word they used. Maybe they used. Oh, okay. All right. Okay. We should write mount in it. What else would they take? MT? MT. Okay, so they take the abbreviation as well. Okay. You're taking I, right? What was the saw? It takes me longer to remember the mnemonics that write what it is. It's a really fun feeling. It's like playing a puzzle game about it's like playing a video game forcing you to do something with something you already know in a different way. Kind of entertaining. Taishita. Tie for important things. They went with straight, barb, ground and barb. Oops. Oh. This is convergence. Yeah, this is converge. So converge. I don't think they take important. Maybe they do. Oh, they do take important. Considerable. Great is the primary. Dang. I should consider reminding myself about great. Okay. Okay. Exclamatory. This is a interjection. What's the mnemonic? Exclamatory. Oh. Kanji meaning. Wait. Is this a pass? Pass. E-man's toe. Cat. I watched the cat video. Turns out most of that cat video, Maru, most of Maru's video was silent. Although I still can't really show the contents of it, at least in my opinion, just for intellectual respect. But cute cat videos. It definitely screams the early days. Yeah, 15 years old. That screams about right. It was a montage of Maru's idiosyncrasies. You know, cat videos of cat videos. I have reservations about how fire is represented over, like, between prints. Let's see. Hito. Oops. Radical. This is a pass. Pass. Ida pass. Pass. For words you already know pretty well, do you feel forcing yourself to remember mnemonics so kind of backwards still improves your ability to retain the word in memory longer? It is that's a good question. No, it does not significantly improve. Well, actually, no. Answering your question directly, yes, it does improve my ability to retain the word in memory longer. Yes, it does. Here's my thing. It's a big disclaimer. So lots of times people talk about the effort. It does require more effort though. And at some point I find the shorthand way of linking the mnemonics. If I don't have a mnemonic for it, it is wholesale. It will slow me down, but it will increase the retention of the word. However, if I already have an existing mnemonic, it'll slow me down, and there is a chance it's negligible, right? It's negligible. However, it creates an open opportunity for me to use it later. So my investment in forcing, quote unquote, like forcing myself to remember the mnemonics is largely because I'm prepping my understanding of how mnemonics move forward. Because I think a lot of the learning curve also deals with being able to understand like the patterns that a person is writing. It would be a little bit different if this was written by a lot of people, like tons of people. Then I would probably approach it slightly different. Maybe even discover if there is like a who is writing what, you know, whom is writing, like they would have some sort of credit. But since it's one person, it's almost as though I'm trying to get to know the person. And because of that motivation to try to get to know the person, the memory, I build this story, and that story becomes a part of my existing story. And I ultimately think it will likely decrease learning curve, or decrease the effort that's being made, which then leaves room for me to add more things on top. But for now, yeah, the whole backwards thing, we're always moving forward, you know. It's forward. The slowest things you can it's kind of a mixed bag right now. When I have something that I have an existing mnemonic, it'll be not that much faster than a piece of information that I'm acquiring a new mnemonic. Now, here's the thing though. In my head, the mnemonics get truncated after a while. So like I no longer say the whole story, I say a couple keywords. And how efficacious are those things? I think ultimately from an objective standpoint, like someone who's trying to be more efficient or think about memory, I think it's insignificant for the most part. So what I mean is, if your task is to remember something, I think having just enough sufficiency to retain the word is enough, right? I'm aiming to have more. I'm a greedy I'm a greedy person. So if I didn't think of something, I like to entertain that idea. And it's not that it'll be guaranteed to stick with me for the rest of my life. The idea is it will probably emerge into something else. So I like retaining things as much as I can to see if it becomes something bigger than the two different parts. Makes sense. I find this a cool exercise watching because I know all these lower level words, but for most of them I kind of forgot the mnemonics, so it's fun to see them again. Kind of nostalgic. Yeah. Yeah. Like honest, like if I had to be super direct, like objective and not like be interested in the writing or anything, I would say that I could do all of this a lot quicker, probably in half the time, without thinking of any mnemonics whatsoever. Just relying on recall, my standard recall. But I find it like it's a fun way to see how quickly so one of the disclaimers then, right, is that I'm spending only a portion of my time remembering the mnemonics. I don't necessarily am concerned of if I know the term or not. So there in the beginning it was kind of rough. So what I did was I used my knowledge of the characters to remind myself of what the mnemonics is. So it's like, yeah, it is going backwards for the most part. And now it's kind of forward. It's like simultaneous right now. Like it's very noticeable. And of course it's also a cool window, yeah, to Koichi's mind. Like here's my thought. Here's my thought. Um when it comes to remembering these things, a lot of times people will say you're wasting your time, right? Um that is true if you know what your goal is. Like, right? Because lots of people are goal oriented. So if you're saying you only want to learn Japanese and you want to learn as quickly as possible, what I'm doing is a waste of time. Like I have no qualms with people saying it's a waste of time. However, I like to, whenever I voluntarily do something, I like to use the stuff by maximizing its potential opportunities. So I may never know if in a couple years I will be in a voice chat with Koichi and asking him about these things. Like you never know. Like that's something you can't possibly anticipate. So most of the time, my experiences tend to be highlighted based on the potential of human interaction. If it's not potentially direct, then any form of indirect interaction is how I develop my skills. I would say the one skill that I could maybe conservatively say is that one skill I would focus on for the rest of my life is understanding people, and not in you don't have 99.9% access to the people directly, right? They are people, so they have their times, life, legacy, their own existence, right? So this is kind of my way to stay engaged with a product by looking at the person behind the product. It was one of my favorite things about creative reading and creative writing. When you're reading, I think some of my earliest times in high school and middle school was reading for the author's intent, like challenging yourself to think like a human. I know how that sounds these days, but it sounds so weird to having to say this often, but trying to place yourself in the other person's shoes and think about the author's intent. And that continuously helps me be creative and problem solving when it involves another person, right? You oftentimes, when people think about products, they think about how the product solves an objective problem. And when I think about it, it's like, yes, certainly. However, that objective problem comes from people. It doesn't come from the product itself alone. And oftentimes, the clearest and concise, and in my opinion, a lot less noisy way of approaching problem solving is viewing a product as a static entity, something that is not influenced by human perception, right? It's often easier, it's clearer, it's straightforward, and I love science for that reason. And at the same time, after working in science long enough to realize it's while we uphold this like ideal image of objective evaluations, one cannot avoid or ignore that eventually it's humans who use the information, and it's also humans who publish and communicate the information. So over time, I've kind of fell in love with the idea of it's not to sideline the people who love collecting knowledge. However, knowledge is in itself incredibly rewarding, but wisdom is what I'm after. So oftentimes when I think one of the more common comments that I have nowadays, actually among my friends and whatnot, is that I like to be a person in which whenever they speak to me, I'm able to provide enough perception, like perspective on things that they are able to navigate their own problems and or navigate some sort of security, right? Feeling of security and catharsis. And that comes with a lot of practice and constant accruing of potential permutations of people's intent and behavior. And that's kind of the whole Ko story, right? We gotta figure out what Ko is doing. And maybe one day, I actually see this happening in the future. Maybe like 2 or 3 years down the line, we might start doing like interviews or something. Genuinely speaking, that's probably one of the holy grails, right? If you're someone who focuses on behavioralism and or things like intent and discussion and whatnot, what more dynamic and challenging is than talking about it intellectually with other people? And when I mean intellectually, I don't necessarily mean graded intellectual objectivity. So what I mean by that is that doesn't mean I won't be talking to a physicist in which the physicists continue to explain something that's beyond my comprehension right now. Right? There's no like grading of people's knowledge. I think thanks to the internet, knowledge has become this like gold standard. It's like, what is your raw knowledge of the topic? And somehow that makes you more perceptive. Oftentimes, actually, I find with more knowledge comes a greater gap in perception. You sacrifice perception for clarity and precise and comprehensibility, that kind of thing. It's oftentimes this is observed in language learning too, where someone who is incredibly competent in a language may fail to exercise proper emotional intelligence when communicating with someone who does not have that, right? Does not have a similar level of competence. I think that's a very large distinguishing factor between someone who is able to communicate while leveraging the knowledge they learn about language versus someone who has a lot of knowledge of a language but fail to practice interpersonal communication skills, right? Call it a bias. It's probably a bias because for myself, growing up from day one, had to navigate more than one thing when it comes to interpersonal skills, right? It comes with a lifetime of wisdom that involves looking different, sounding different, living differently. So it came with all the needs to emphasize a skill that, whether I choose to like it or not, it was a sufficiency. It was a necessity almost in order to be able to feel comfortable in academics, etc. Right? Growing up in a background in which you obligatorily is treated differently, you have to come to some sort of understanding, right? It's a very, very interesting question that prompts a lot of thoughts. However, I would say yes, it still improves the retention rate in the long run. However, it's probably not statistically significant. Like it's probably negligible in a grand scheme of things, right? So when I'm saying these things, it's the first thought that comes to my head. So you can find like I can find like a gauge, and then people outside may find a gauge in the frequency of what my first thought is coming. I tend to try to speak my first thoughts when it comes to SRS related things, because SRS related things deal with that. I mean, they're called flashcards for a reason. And I'm being facetious, but flash first thought, right? I don't think I'm being super honest though. I have a lot of thoughts instantaneously, like, so it takes milliseconds to have thoughts, but whenever my voice when I say something, it's probably the first when I finally get to the vocal part. But usually thoughts come before speech. Whenever someone says like, oh, just say whatever first come to your head, it's like, yeah, you have to think about it, then you speak it, right? So you try. This is vocabulary, right? So stuck. Well, speaking of windows into minds, it's good for us viewers that you voice that even with whatever filter you might still have. Yes, I think that is how I feel my adaptation to streaming, to live entertainment, right? One of the biggest stopgaps when it comes to one of the biggest distinctions between live recordings and editorial recordings is the to heighten the aspect difference. The differences between live and post edited. I have basically classically developed this habit. It doesn't quite resonate with a lot of people. You can definitely tell the difference between someone who is predominantly expecting a post-edited experience versus a live experience. So commentary that can elicit this type of impression would be comments that deal with looking at a whole process in one time frame. How do I illustrate this? Someone who says things like, well, you got it wrong, so you clearly are trash at this. That's a person who like views a singular expectation at one point in time, but does not have the perceptive like it's not perceptive enough to view things as a long process. That's kind of where I would do a very cheap and topical reference to Albert Einstein, the mythical. I'm not sure how real the encounter is because it's been word of mouth, like it's a propagated story. But the idea of that scene, if you can imagine it, where Albert Einstein would go into a class and he would write on the board and he would do a math permutation. And at one point he makes an error and then the entire class notices, right? And then they would talk about it. And he would make a comment about, it's interesting, right, Rhetoric? It's interesting that you notice this one error when 99.9% of the time he's accurate, right? And that's kind of one of those hyper relative, if you will, relativity kind of moments. I'm not sure that was the intent of the story. However, I think it's very poetic that it's Albert Einstein that they used. The idea is post-edited and not voicing things doesn't mean they don't exist. However, when one consumes products where all of this isn't visible, one can come to emotional, if not definitely emotional, right? Emotional immediate responses to things that they don't see very often. So, for example, Twitch is the closest thing you can have to a pre-selection of expecting people to screw up, right? Or make mistakes. But that is very, very confined to games. So it's normalized for games. It's not normalized for knowledge. Knowledge comes with clairvoyance and omniscience, even in video games. So, for example, it is acceptable behavior to insult someone's knowledge when they recall something mistakenly, versus seeing someone do something like dynamic, like, oh, he missed a headshot, and that's like, oh yeah, that, you know, that's normal. People, you hit some, you miss some, right? So things that of mechanical nature is still normalized to have human capacities or human idiosyncrasies, yet knowledge does not. Like the idea that you can forget things, it's a double standard. It's okay if you're the person admitting that you forget things. It's also okay to accuse someone of forgetting something as being bad at something, right? It's forgetting something is a deficiency when you're critiquing someone, yet it's not a deficiency when you're admitting it. You can see that I very rarely watch streams yourself, and I think you are very good at both genuinely engaging with chat and still giving serious focus to your content, even with the frequent tangents. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Sometimes we gotta find the balance, right? And I think it sounds like you and I have a mutual appreciation for the balance between the two. I can tell you that these tangents have occasionally draw someone who like comes in and says, no one cares, no one cares, no one cares, play already. That has happened now. You just now noticed this isn't Mandarin? Yeah, Mandarin is later. Hanzi Hero and my Duolingo Chinese practice thing is it's later, yeah. Not Mandarin yet. You're more than welcome to use Mandarin though, and talk about Mandarin. Language learning, right? This is a language learning content, so we're not discriminatory towards what the language is. In fact, we can probably talk about Chinese while we're learning Japanese. That's perfectly fine too. Like, what I mean is, I don't actually know of a character right off the bat that would use this radical in Chinese. Which one would I use? Yeah, you're more than welcome to try to tell me a character in Mandarin that uses this radical right off the top of your head when you're following along and whatnot. No, there's no restrictions, really. Actually, Japanese and Chinese work very well SRS together. So a lot of times, not radicals. I haven't thought of Chinese. I haven't thought of Mandarin in terms of radicals, unfortunately. So I don't have this like behavioral response like, oh, that's in something. However, you might find it interesting. I will probably try to do this in the future because Hansa Hero and WaniKani uses component breakdowns as a form of memory. So since I was learning with Duolingo first, it's not the case for that. So most of the time when I'm learning Japanese, I'm thinking of Mandarin characters, and then, or when I see kanji, I'm thinking of Hansa, and then vice versa. So you can technically still reinforce your Mandarin when you're looking at these characters. Right. And that's kind of the fun part, is that you're just now noticing, and that's kind of the idea between learning both of them at the same time. What was this? This was a slide with lots of crosses, but it's death by 1,000 needles, or 1,000 crosses. Okay. Squeeze them cheeks? Yeah. We gotta squeeze them cheeks. Chikara. Kami. Kami. Right. Kami. Gongzhuo, right? This will remind me of Gongzhuo. Example, watching someone's mistakes could be frustrating to you in some circumstances only, but not when that person is actually trying and paying attention. Intriguing. Example of what I could find frustrating. Streamers who don't pay attention to a game because they're looking at chat nonstop and then complain why they don't understand what's going on in the game. Ah, yeah. Yes, that can be tough. Earlier, the thing that you mentioned earlier, where when you see someone make a mistake could be frustrating. For some people, the mistakes come at a reminding someone self of their own mistakes before, and then that becomes an emotional baggage. So for maybe a good amount of 5 or 6 months, I talked to like 2 or 3 people, and since then I haven't spoken to them ever since, because usually that frustration builds up quite substantially, and that comes from a place of projected empathy, projected selfish feelings, but not necessarily a place of empathy, right? And that can be a thing to add on, like other circumstances can also happen with witnessing someone making a mistake, and paying attention and trying to solve it is not sufficient for those people. Those people are very kind people. They just don't like seeing people making mistakes, if you know what I mean. And that can be very revealing about oneself. I'm too, as a transparency kind of thing, I'm the person who would sit here and watch you do it, and my act of being available is what I can offer, right? And that kind of demonstrates what my circumstances are, right? Now, does it frustrate me if I see someone not paying attention and complaining about it? I would tend to say yes. I would tend to say yes as well. Criticizing something for someone's own inability to care for observational stuff is something that I tend to rant about. But then you still won't throw a fit. I'll just stop watching the content if it's not for you. Yeah, a somewhat reasonable, a by too rare behavior. Fine. Yes. So like, for example, there's this thing that happens with echo chambers. Sometimes the complaint can be unfounded, largely not even necessarily due to the inattentiveness, but the knowledge that it is a problem. You know what I mean? Like priming. There's a lot of nocebo effect that occurs with internet-prone echo chamber stuff. So, for example, I can no longer, or it's difficult for me to discern the efficacy of Duolingo when the echo chamber is so strong that you might not even be able to distinguish between a nocebo effect and the actual flaw in, like, critical flaw, if there is a critical flaw in Duolingo's design, right? If you watch a video that says, I spent 1,000 days learning Duolingo Japanese, I actually got recommended by YouTube, this video, this person, maybe like within the first month, this person has a whole like series which deals with using words like terrible, the worst, waste of my life, those key phrases, and it's associated with Duolingo Japanese. And the idea is, how much of that is that when you use a product in order to build some sort of topical commentary, how much of that product is reflective in one's own echo chamber? So if you think a product isn't going to work, how much of an impact is it going to have when you actually use the product? For example, here's a more subtle nuance that happens here, which will relate back to our original topic when you ask going backwards. If I thought of it as going backwards, as in, if I wanted to evaluate this product and I already know that I'm an intermediate Japanese user, how will that impact my opinions and the efficacy of WaniKani, right? So as an effort to negotiate that, I disclose that I'm no longer a beginner Japanese language learner. That's one way to mitigate, to like contextualize how you're going into it, so it like substantiates potential bias. And also, in addition, I'm committing to the idea that I must at least be observant and try to understand how the design works as as what is provided, and attempt to participate in it. You could, as a reviewer and a journalist, choose to leverage your knowledge and experience, and then demonstrate that make the same disclosure and that transparency, and then reveal that if you're in that same position, so that someone can say, oh, I'm intermediate in Japanese, so maybe I will likely have a similar opinion here, and then that information becomes informative. Alternatively, you could be a clout chaser who would say something like, oh, I have 0 experience with Japanese. Meanwhile, they had like 400 days of experience somewhere else, and then say, this app is absolutely useless. You can learn so much better and faster with other resources. Now, the first question that comes to my mind is, when did they do it? Did they do it after? Did they do it concurrently? Did they do it before? Because the moment I find out when someone says you don't learn any grammar from Duolingo, and then you look at that person's history and they've already read the 2 Genki textbooks before they use Duolingo, you start to wonder, okay, so they're no longer motivated to learn grammar, because when they get exposed to the grammar, they would have already intuitively know what the grammar points are. So inherently, they wouldn't learn anything from even being exposed to the grammar points. Like, the human being is not incentivized to seek information of which they already know. So, if you keep that perspective in mind, I found personally,
when I focus on the content creator and their background and the timing of their reviews. I'm only, and this is a disclaimer, I use Duolingo, so I was interested in how people perceive Duolingo's efficacy. The substantial amount of individuals who evaluate Duolingo that echoes with the hyperbolic, the most extreme situations, like it is absolutely garbage, it's a scam, that kind of thing. Though that group, we're not talking about the very respectable professionals who like try to balance the ones that get the most clicks, the clout chasers. They often do not disclose what they already have done, what they already know going into Duolingo, what they currently do with Duolingo, in order to offset the idea that when you feel like you're learning something, it also has to be novel. Well, if you're evaluating something based on what you can learn and it's no longer novel, how can you possibly think that is something not important to mention, right? We are discussing about the impact of remembering a mnemonics where it's no longer sufficient, or it's no longer necessary for me. I no longer require to remember this mnemonics. So I keep that in mind. I make sure I clarify that I don't need these mnemonics. However, I'm trying my best to find, I buy a product because I want to use all of the product. I want to see what the product has to offer. So I actually purchased WaniKani knowing, already weighing my decision making. So when I was introducing WaniKani, I made all those considerations in my decision to buy it. So when I come on here, I don't have to necessarily force myself to know the mnemonics. I'm already invested in wanting to know the mnemonics that Ko write. Otherwise, I would have chose a different product. Honestly, using Anki and developing my own flashcards as a form of memory, that's another way to go about it. So in the long run, I would say the biggest message and criticisms, for example, Duolingo, I haven't looked into WaniKani yet, if people even evaluate WaniKani that often. For Duolingo, the harshest critics are the ones that, in my opinion, and I'm gonna be like as direct as I can, they're incredibly narrow-sighted. Their scope is not large enough to accommodate the idea that language learning is a longer process than some isolated event, and one does not underestimate the nocebo effect. It is arguably as powerful as the placebo effect. However, on the internet, clout and motivation for clout is often predicated on the nocebo effect. When something is garbage, when something is scam, when something is a waste of time, that produces a substantial amount more of engagement and controversy than celebrating something that is exceptionally wholesome, because even exceptionally wholesome and placebo effect dominant things are challenged by nocebo effect. As in, hey, oh, this guy learned something from Duolingo. Nah, that can't be true. Because all the other experts, quote unquote experts, say there's no way you can learn anything from Duolingo. So this guy's got to be cheating or something. There's got to be doing something like outside that. And I disclose all that. Like, I know what I do during the stuff. I even talk about all the stuff I do off stream because I can't stream those things. There's a copyright limitation. That's transparency. I can't show you the anime that I'm watching. It's copywritten. Like, I would love to watch anime with other people and mine sentences with them, but that's not legally possible, right? Oh yeah, I don't think I could give a proper opinion on a tool system of effectiveness to learn French, for example. I could probably project yourself, yes, and entertain ideas, but I would always preface that you're not the target group. Exactly. There's no what people are doing is not technically morally wrong. I know how that sounds. It's a moral gray, it's an ethical gray area, and it's also a legally gray area. So without standardization, I can only concede to the idea. I can concede to the idea that there are people who have different thresholds of ethics, morality, and perception. So until you are held accountable for these type of things, rarely is there some sort of standardization or regulation on it, right? Like our previous discussion about vetting, right? Vetting process. There aren't accountabilities for providing. There's no standardization. So if this is not normalized, then you come to expect that there are individuals who don't practice this type of diligence. I guess I would file it under due diligence, right? I cannot tell people that their WaniKani experience will be the same as me unless, only unless, somehow they decided to use Duolingo for Japanese for over 300 days and also do at least 80 to 90% of the things I've recorded. That would enhance the probability that the WaniKani experience I'm having right now is going to be relevant to theirs. Now, with all of that said, I then proceed to try my best to say, this is how I engage with WaniKani, because I can no longer be a beginner in Japanese anymore. Like, it is very difficult to not look at this, and I can think of Chinese and Japanese characters, like Hanzi and Kanji, at the same time. I can't remove that anymore. It's not like, oh, let's just use all my efforts to pretend not to know these things anymore, right? So that's kind of one of the limitations of human experience, especially when you're evaluating learning products. I think one little rhetoric to consider when you, since we love language learning, right? I like to think most of us enjoy language learning. The way YouTube, Amazon, and all those things accumulate reviews, the normalized behavior is to evaluate a product in the sense of a point in time, right? It's a point in time of use without overlapping experiences, right? Yet you might be thinking, okay, yeah, that's what most people do. However, language learning products have a property that distinguishes it from other things. You collectively is part of the learning curve. So when you're evaluating the predominant nature of language learning curves, it requires a nuance that I feel is not normalized, because people don't like to learn things using they don't go out of their way to learn new skills. Let's be a little bit general about this. So when they go to evaluate things, in my opinion, a lot of times individuals who would go to evaluate these things also evaluate other types of products. And what happens a lot of times is they treat a learning product like a consumable or like a perishable. So that's where I find the biggest cognitive dissonance between the value evaluation of a learning product, especially a live service or like a live service product, versus a finished product. And this can be paralleled in the gaming industry and so on, right? And my difference here is I'm a streamer as well. So a streamer tends to invest in something that is consistently a live service, largely due to the nature that the perspective is that that product continues to evolve, change, coexist with the support of a community. The vast majority of reviews that are very viral compared to maybe a select few experts that do elevate to at that level. Generally speaking, they evaluate things based on a standalone product, and then they stick by their reviews as though that product never changes. That was probably my primary criticism about when I was looking for a alternative for Chinese and Hansa Hero, in which I landed on Hansa Hero. One of the most disappointing things that I have found largely is due to the nature that professional journalism, or I guess internet journalism, when the main sources of feedback when it comes to leveraging expert advice or someone who says, I've tried all of them and here's my top tier 10 list, is the failure to preface and or establish a personal history with these products. It does matter. Order does grossly, significantly matter when it comes to evaluating learning products. It doesn't necessarily matter for creative process. Sometimes it does. Like, for example, I'll give you one from movies and industry, for example. When a movie is a sequel, right? Automatically someone will naturally intuit it, saying, oh yeah, I should contextualize this to the prequel. And maybe if you knew it's a trilogy, also contextualize it to a future setup, right? That's using knowledge to contextualize something in that sphere. So it still happens. Like, oh, this game is a sequel. Okay, now my mindset changes, right? In evaluating the product. Oh, this is a setup for a future installment. Oh, the sequel was great because it had a lot of nods to the prequel. There was a payout for sequel. Learning apps are not perishable one-offs. If you're learning something already and you're coming in evaluating another learning app, that matters, in my opinion. And there is a failed attempt to disclose that ever. It's right in your face, but they don't disclose it. For example, someone says, I tried all the apps. And I'm like, okay, so that means you've already made your article very, very irrelevant, because you haven't stated in which order did you test your apps. What's your language background when you're testing all the apps? You have not established any of that. So your advice and your tiering is literally an op-ed, in my opinion. So that's where I find that professionally, that's fine, because they technically didn't say this was like monetized for performance or any type of vetting, and they kind of alluded to the idea that that is their opinion. So most internet journalism is predicated on being an opinion piece, right? And that's acceptable. It's uninformative to me, though. Like, it's so important to know when someone says you don't learn anything, is it that they don't learn anything? It's so hard to know. Like, do you hate a game because you feel like it's done before and you've played so many of these games? That affects the review and how informative it is to other people. And I'm only highlighting the clout ones, like the ones that are viral. So this is very selective for the pre-selection. I think the vast majority of people have a balance between it. They would say, oh, I love the Star Wars. Like, for example, you love Star Wars. So you have to establish, like, okay, you love Star Wars. That's great, because that is a relevant information, for example, as opposed to, so this movie is crap. Like, okay, can you give me more context? Like, have you seen another movie like that? do you like specific movies that aren't like this? Because it would help me to understand when you say Star Wars is crap. How do I do you hate Star Wars already? Like, there's so many more questions when you say something so sharp, like so hyperbolic. You're considering showing Star Wars to your 6-year-old sometime soon. Still not sure if I should start with the original and the prequel. Go crazy. Why don't you just start with the sequels? I'm kidding. Sorry. But why don't you go crazy and start with the sequels? Here's my take on this. Is a little bit different in terms of movie making. The sequels have a generational cinematography approach that is very distinguishable from the originals and then the prequels. So they represent like 3 iterations of the modernized cinematography at the time. So the originals represent the pop cinematography of its time, and the prequel then was the second resurgence, right? It's about 10 years ish. We're gonna give it a 10-year, like decade. We're just rounding, sorry. Rounding decades, and every another decade there will be another generational pop cinematography. So the question is your 6-year-old old enough to start associating and normalizing specific cinematography patterns, right? And you got to choose your poison, because you can definitely see that there is very topical production direction, at least in my opinion, when I saw across the board, right? They're like period pieces. That would be interesting. Prequel or original? And you haven't decided if the sequels are worth comparing, because there are 3, there are 3 distinct time periods in cinematography history. There's, the George Lucas era, and then kind of the George Lucas era, but wet dream George Lucas era, and then there's the post George Lucas era. That's a good question. Obviously, from a process-oriented person, in my opinion, she'll eventually see all 3 of them, right? Although it could create a placebo effect, or a nocebo effect, and you might not get to the end. Your personal preference for media, game, TV, movies, anime is always to go by release order. Oh. Okay. I'm just afraid she'd be a little put off by the older ones because she's not familiar with old. I think hear me out here. That's what I meant by, is she familiar already? By 6 years old, is she familiar with modern standards, if you know what I mean? Because if she's not familiar with modern standards yet, then she is more likely to intuitively be associated with whichever comes first. Isn't that crazy? Just think about how interesting it is for an adult to look back on childhood preferences, right? There's a first of, and the first of effect is so substantial, especially for potentially a youth that hasn't established permanence yet, like permanence with creative ideas, for example, right? I mean, nowadays, I just spent like the last 30 to 40 minutes talking about viewing products at a single point of time. That perception still goes into like adulthood most of the time, right? At least young adulthood, where they don't view things as period pieces, where like the original will always be the original. It cannot be captured because you would have to take yourself out of place and time, right? So in order to rekindle that, literally the social like aspect and the context would have to revert or resurge back to that time period. I can't say I have seen anything that would want to recapture the days of old. I think the closest thing would probably be Star Trek. But yeah, that's a really good question. Let me know what you end up doing, because release order seems like a very pragmatic approach. You watched all of Jurassic Park and World recently. Okay, and she enjoyed it all, but she does think the dinos look better in the more recent movies. I feel she's more connected with World. Oh. You know what's funny about that? Dinos are real in the old ones, and then dinos are not real in the new ones. And what I mean by that is real. So, if you know what I mean, when it comes to like how they pulled off the looks and whatnot. So oftentimes when I think of the Jurassic Park ones, yeah, that is a very great contrast. So most likely, if you knew this now, and if she's connected with World, you could. Oh, this sounds like we're hitting a morally gray area here, or an ethics problem here, but hear me out here. So now you have a choice. Do you double down and reinforce and see how you could engage her with presenting the opposite order, or double down and reinforce the modernization of visual effects by starting with the sequels and introducing the idea of backward storytelling, or contextual, like expositional story making. Like, for example, you show the modern one, then you fill in all the gaps in order to create more significance for the modern ones. I know what you mean. Insert crazy conspiracy theory about the politicians actually being dinosaurs. So, if you know what I mean, like, the world's your oyster, I suppose, and hers. I think again, I don't have children, nor do I have a significant other. However, it would be interesting to hear what she would want to do at this point, knowing that you have watched Jurassic World or Jurassic Park, where like you would present the case where here's this, and here's this. Where do you want to start? However, know that we're gonna have fun and we're gonna watch all of them, right? So then you give the case where she will know that she's gonna end up watching all of them. So it would be really interesting to see what she goes with. Yeah, ultimately, I won't lose sleep over it. Either way would be interesting in its own way. Yeah, you'll probably end up asking her what she would prefer to do indeed. Yeah, like, to me, it's like, it sounds like I'm treating things like a social experiment, but at the same time, like, I love my social experiments. I think people are beautiful and dynamic. It's an everlasting process to observe how people think, and it certainly would be fun. I would love to hear what she ended up choosing in this case. I think normality predicates normality is the strongest force, one of the strongest forces when it comes to childhood development. So the higher consistency in a reward response is probably likely going to be the thing reinforced. And to me, it is largely up to the responsibility of, not saying it's all their responsibility, but it's up to the responsibility of the more experienced person, the adult or the guardian, to continue to healthily introduce other stimuli to the child, right? Like, yes, you can let them have their favorite dopamine drive, but at the same time, show them an equivalent interest and fun in a competing novelty, right? Like, without saying too much, a child becomes really interested in something when it's competitively trying to capture their interest. So, for example, if you really, really love Star Wars, like your old stuff, demonstrating that might take the winning enthusiasm away from maybe their self-preference, right? My love for Star Trek did not come to fruition until I understand that other people like Star Trek. And then that becomes a habit of exposing myself to people with differing perspectives, largely due to the nature that I want to understand them. However, that cannot be honestly developed very early if the child is unhealthy, like if the child's upset or unhealthy, because you have to focus on yourself. However, when you go into adulthood, it's a very excellent strategy to balancing what can become boring and mundane or need to escalate to excess like doom scrolling and whatnot, because that stimuli can become overused, it can be overexposed. So if you're constantly, for example, going back to Jurassic World and stuff, if you're constantly exposed to Jurassic World, like that type of thing, at some point, this interest will grow for everything else. And it may or may not be a thing that lines up with someone's creativity, but generally speaking, overexposure to any single stimuli does reduce the flexibility in someone's creativity. And a lot of times people might say, well, creativity is overrated. You don't have to be creative. Well, problem solving involves creativity, right? Inventing involves creativity. Leadership involves creativity. So if you want someone to be able to solve problems, maybe even problems that they haven't encountered before, oftentimes throwing a little dash of creativity and stimuli is can go a long way. We're not talking about always creativity. That's absurd. Actually, I can't even imagine what that's like. That's like being so high functioning that you don't want any consistency in your life. That's hard to imagine. Well, for little and innocent things like that, having children is great for conducting little social experiments. Yeah, I fall in love with my experiments, so this is a very different perspective, but my experiments and stuff was my life. So it's not the same as someone saying, oh, this is my little experiment, I'm just gonna set this ant on fire. It's not that, right? Actually, I think there's often a misconception that's predicated in social media and entertainment for dramatic theatrical effects, but generally speaking, I can't tell you how much stress and emotional strain it is to be incredibly protective of your experiments and to make sure that everything is kept. Like, the amount of attention, in my opinion, to execute an excellent experiment, it can dwarf sometimes, or maybe even most of the time now, the attention and stress and emotional cost when people treat their children, right? Like, if I were to treat my children like my experiments, they would be the most observed thing in my entire life. And yes, it's a weird way to produce this awkward feeling, like, but you're calling your child an experiment. It's like, well, what do you think is an experiment in your life? You have thoughts, ideas, methodology, you do result checking, and then it's an ongoing collective process. So my use of the word is quite more of a funny anecdote into science, or like a metaphor into science. But generally speaking, I spend day in, day out, I sleep, breathe, I go on vacation thinking about my experiments. That's what I would do with my child too. if I had a child. My hypothetical child would have all the attention and love and observation and possible problem solving that I can wield. I will sleep, eat, and breathe and think about the well being of my child. So, if that's how other people view experiment, then we're on the same page. We're on the same page. I'm not a huge Star Wars fan. I don't consider myself a anything diehard fan. I'm more of an everything fan. That's fair. I'm a fan due to recency. So that's probably the way I can describe it. My memory is collectively viewed as I'm a fan that collects everything. So everything I have done, I'm a fan of. Everything that I haven't done, I can't say I'm a fan of because I never experienced it. However, I can try to empathize and vicariously conceptualize those things. So, like, I'm a fan of people who like to learn language, but I can only tell you, I can only be a fan of those who use Duolingo, WaniKani, and Hanza Hero because I can't actually really know what it's like unless I see something or witness something, right? So, in a way, I can agree about the how it's possible to be an everything fan. In the long run, I often find when someone says they like everything, they can only name a few things at the time. And that's why I would say to capture that everything fan feel is when you do something, you love it for the most, you have it, you try to use it to the best of its ability. So in a way, you are putting your utmost attention to the thing that's currently happening. This then translates to a lot of questions where someone would ask me, what's your favorite game, right? And they would expect something that crosses time. And oftentimes I would say, well, I'm a fan of the current thing I'm doing. Because if I'm not the fan of the current thing I'm doing, then why am I doing it in the first place? Now, this is for voluntary things, right? Because we're talking about Star Wars, things you're voluntarily picking to do. So I would probably say, when you quoted everything, I feel I am an everything fan as well, to some extent. However, probably not in the same way that you're saying it there. I can't empathize that. Not literally everything, of course, but I enjoy entertainment's diversity, discovery, and curiosity. In entertainment is diversity, discovery, and curiosity. Fair enough. Fair enough. Here's my extra everything. When I say recency and I'm a fan, so if I choose to rewatch Bob's Burger, I'm a fan of Bob's Burger. Right? So if there's something to rewatch, like for example, if I rewatch an anime because I'm learning Japanese now, I can persist to be a fan of that anime and learning Japanese because I'm doing it at the time. So everything fan, I like it, with a big asterisk, in order for me to try to empathize with you. I don't think there's a creative selection for a particular genre here as well, right? Maybe it's more to differentiate from possibly what you mean about being an everything fan. Maybe I'm an anything fan. So anything with a particular time frame in mind. I can only be the biggest of fans on the things that I can remember and experience. Thanks. Ogi Boros? Thank you. So a separate idea, if you will. When I play video games, one of the top 5 questions that I get asked is, what's your favorite video game? And I'm like, the current one that I'm playing. That's the short answer. It would be like, if you want a short answer, it's the current thing I'm playing. What is my favorite language learning app right now? WaniKani. in a few if you wait until Hanzuhiro starts up, the answer is Hanzuhiro. So, I try to that was me that followed, but I got an ad, so I'm back on YouTube. Oh, okay. Hello, Boros. Welcome. Welcome back. How are you? Anyways, I look forward to hearing about your daughter. You're okay with that, right? Or in other words, there are definitely things I like more than others, but I like many things in many genres. My fandomness is not specialized. Very well put. Which to some diehard fans could potentially make me not a true fan, which is crazy to you. Yeah. Um, when I use WaniKani, I'm not a serious language learner. Ne? Right? if Have you enjoyed learning Chinese so far? I haven't checked in a while. I do. I have, bro. So recently we've concluded Duolingo Chinese course. So right now I'm doing my homework. We're gonna do a summary of the last 100 days. So it's like a 200-day progress report. However, before that, I have to do a 300-day progress report for Japanese. And then we're going to migrate to other projects that deal with Chinese. At the moment, though, we are ramping up our two new projects, which is WaniKani and Hanzuhiro. And I kind of reviewed most of it on day one, what the motivation was behind Hanzuhiro. So right now I'm having one of my classical digressions with Gecko here, which Gecko is a long time WaniKani user. That's kind of how a lot of this started. How are you? How are you, Boros? 很不错 right? 很不错很好很好我中文I don't know how you say beginner, intermediate. It's all right. HSK 334 probably, something like that. It's enough for me to start doing things like answer response stuff. So we're probably gonna move to an LLM soon. Don't worry, I don't mind talking about your daughter. I'm the one who brought her up. Okay. At this point in my life, I would definitely say being a dad is a core part of me, so it makes sense that she pop up in conversations. That is such a breath of fresh air that you're able to acknowledge that. Like, hear me out here. I can't tell you how rare it is for people to frame and talk about the people around their lives, the people that they care about, largely because, and the really rough reality is that the vast majority of people that I encounter do not have people around that they would talk about. So, like, for example, whenever I'm concerned, when I'm sharing like a short story about my parents or my advisor, my academic advisor, because someone said, oh yeah, you know, my teacher is garbage, it's hot garbage, like I wish I had better teachers. And my first thought is, do you have anybody else? Like, you never bring up anyone else after all these talks? Like, what is your point of reference for a person that's terrible or a person that is not? And the reason why is, like, voluntarily, people don't, like, the vast majority of people don't give me an impression that they actually have people they interact with on a regular basis, you know, people they care about or people to be cared about and people who care about them. And I think it's incredibly rare nowadays, or far rarer, to have someone who genuinely talk about the things they think about and it involves another person. And not that it's a bad or a good thing. I think a vast majority of these people I talk to are quite comfortable being loners. However, they do express a lot of grievances and dissatisfaction that having another person or another core that involves interacting with people may brave new life or some sort of difference in their perspective on people. Like how a lot of individuals talk towards someone, like talk at someone versus with someone. And I think it shows that you really, really do care about your daughter, and not that we're being a not that this is supposed to be a competitive process, but it's actually quite endearing when the vast majority of conversations deal with an interaction with another person. I think that's fairly rare nowadays. Did you say LLM? Are you going to talk to an AI? Yes, we are going to do some fun, creative writing prompts with LLMs. It's going to be very different. We're going to use the LLM sessions in Chinese to develop and use them for practical project planning for other things. So I'm going to use my Chinese functionally to learn about something else using an LLM while learning Chinese. That's largely because that's what I use my language for. When I'm online, I use my language to learn more things. So functionally, like in the beginning, we're probably going to talk about topics like, so what is the makeup of Fujianese people in China? Like, let's see if we can find information on that or something like that. So we're probably going to start using our at least Chinese for now. Japanese, we still got a lot of Duolingo to go, so that kind of thing. More on that later, though. You'll probably see it post up. It'll be under something. It'll be a new series. It's not for a bit though. The current project is we iron out our schedules for Hansa Hero, which I'm still having a time work balance issue, sort of like time strapped balance stuff. And we have Like a Dragon. Like a Dragon's coming up. So video games. かっこいいですね. So there's a lot of projects, but the LLM stuff won't come until after Duolingo's Spanish schedule is ironed out. And then we have to do like staggered stuff. So right now, we've already started our 2 new projects of 2025. And then Like a Dragon comes next in Chinese. Then Like a Dragon 8, or Like a Dragon in Chinese, Like a Dragon 8 in Chinese, Like a Dragon 8 in Japanese. Then Like a Dragon Yakuza Pirates in English, because the launch date is February 20th. And then Like a Dragon in Chinese again, Yakuza Pirates in Chinese. Then in Japanese, it's for lack of a better, I won't describe what the process is because I do the same for all the previous Like a Dragon games. And then Spanish starts. Duolingo Spanish starts. And we resume Duolingo Japanese. But the most 2 immediate things is I have to do the review, the 100-day review, 300-day, 100-day review of Duolingo Japanese. And then I have to do the 3-parter Duolingo Chinese review, the 100 days at 200 days. And after that, we resume Duolingo Japanese, and Duolingo Chinese will be an addendum to Duolingo Japanese because we're only doing the practice stuff. At least that's the plan for now. So all of that has to cycle through. And then we do the LLMs for Chinese. Lots of things. Lots of things already set in motion. Yeah. And we haven't gotten to like how video games is going to factor into farming for deck builder terms in Chinese and whatnot, I had to form the basis of the vocabulary word, and that involves Anki. Probably. So after that, we're talking about May and June. We're talking about like around May and June, we're gonna do Anki in order to form genre-specific game decks for Japanese and Chinese. Just genre-specific. So deck builders will be the first subgenre. I play a lot of deck builders, and I need to form Anki-specific deck builder terms in order to build the keywords. So I'm building a keyword database for myself through screen caps and playing video games. So we're doing screenshots and stuff to create terms, right? That I need deck builders. So I need to know like what's a token, right? Token spawn, persistent effects, damage over time, what's a DOT, what's a HOT, that kind of thing. So we'll use Anki to build what I call the new like genre specific game stuff, which will happen somewhere in the mid year. There's stuff at the end of the year, but that's too far ahead. We don't want to think that far ahead right now. Do you split your time equally between Chinese or Japanese, or favorite one or more? They're both at the same time, so they are not split. You don't split Chinese and Japanese. You kind of just think of both of them at the same time. So when when I'm reading Japanese, I could think of Chinese at any time, so it's very difficult to split them. That's kind of one of the things that I feel lots of other people can do much better than I can. Like, I don't typically focus on any one language. Also, a quick note when I hear you talk about these cool plans. If you wanted more workload predictability, I would actually suggest limiting your WaniKani lessons. We're gonna... I've already talked about that a little bit. It is going to be to use it at whatever case it is. This is semantic. This is more like predictive knowledge. If it was consistent, then I have to find the consistent before I do the refining. So it doesn't really, you really can't tell what is predictable within my tolerance until you actually do it. So superseding that, limiting something before you need to limit it is kind of premature. Unlike Hanzuhiro Wang and mostly unlocking batches, if you do every lesson, as you know, you'll have high workload peaks. That's fine. Then you have a schedule that normalizes to high workload peaks. When you think of consistency and predictability, it can oscillate. So you're specifically focusing on trying to keep it moderate like this across time. But another consistent peak could look like this. So we could form a schedule around repetitious peaks. That's also a possibility. So when you're saying limiting the WaniKani lessons, it's to lower the range. However, we could adjust the schedule to this. Kind of like when you're having a long run day or a speed run day and a long run day. Speed run day, long run day. Think of it as an expanded as opposed to a day to day. So when you're thinking about limiting WaniKani lessons, it's more like thinking day to day. You could think of it in months or weeks, right? And we can fit a repetitious as we can separate them into repetitive units. So that's kind of what I'm leaning towards right now. So there'll be a peak day where it'll be WaniKani only, and then so forth and so on. So it could be a more dynamic process as opposed to trying to create low noise and consistency that way. This is consistent too. That's kind of how we went about it with Duolingo. Chinese was always like half the length of Duolingo Japanese. And largely because the Chinese experience is different. I don't have to process grammar versus Duolingo Japanese. So Hanza Hero is always going to be down here so far. It's looking like it's about here. And this is two regular patterns, right? Two regular patterns. You don't have to relate them together. They don't have to have the same workload, predictability. This is a predictable workload too. Yeah, it makes sense for scheduling. I feel the upper graph is easier because you can't always predict those peaks precisely, but in the end, if you're not frustrated, that's what matters. Yeah. When you're within the predictive range, there's gonna be a predictive range. Actually, to tell you the truth, in Duolingo situation, it's all over the place. Like Duolingo kind of looks like this, and ultimately, you can form a schedule. Sorry, I'm like writing with my mouse, which I don't typically do. You can normally have a schedule that is flexible enough to address some of these peaks. Here's my thing about it. Flexible schedules are harder, in my opinion, or it feels harder. When someone says like one is easier and one is harder, I would say it's relative to the amount of how much practice you do in those. Because this schedule might seem like the daily life of a CEO or something, which may seem like more normal than a schedule by a office worker or something, right? Who specializes in a very specific schedule. So for me, we do multiple schedules. Like Hanza Hero will have a separate schedule, and Hanza Hero can have a separate schedule. Duolingo can have a separate schedule that negotiates with WaniKani, right? That's perfectly fine. It's the challenge. It's not only not frustrating, it's actually kind of fun trying to make it work. If it doesn't work, obviously it's not frustrating because I could do contingency plans. I can create contingency plans to fit the model. Duolingo game style learns a new word into different sentences and many different. As far as I know, this method still works. Yeah. Lots of methods technically work, and it's odd. Long story short on that one, it's difficult for me to have someone who says they are well experienced, very competent, to say that a product that a lot of people use does not work, like logistically, like not work, right? No work, not like any work. No work. Would like it makes me wonder if a person is evaluating something if they use language like that, right? And I totally agree. It still works. Like pretty much all coexisting methods right now work to some extent, right? And that's excellent. Now, it's definitely something else when someone says it doesn't work. Like the word that I like that you use was still. I like still. Still is great. It sufficiently works for sure. Anyways, let's get back to our radical. This is a good thing. As for Anki, the space SRS method is often used for single words because the first two people to research it applied it to vocabulary. Yeah, I'm well aware of how Anki works. Yeah. That is not necessarily the case now. However, it's not necessarily the case now. However, yeah, the origins for sure. I read a little bit about the origins of Yankee. Yeah. SD, yeah, not at all. And Anki can be quite a hassle to set up. It certainly can. That's provided if someone is not used to that type of thing, right? Context for the user. Yeah. I will give Anki as much leeway as I give Duolingo and WaniKani. Viewing things based on an origin perspective is one time point, and viewing what it is now is one time point, and collectively is the whole thing. So I like to try my best to view the product as a continuum of all its development process, right? It is pretty much all the time points. Currently, it is a certain nature, and then where it started was a certain nature for sure. So you could pick any time point and then describe the product, and I would agree with you because it was at one time that kind of product. So yes, Duolingo at one time did not have any kanji listed. I'm aware of that. Not that I used it at that time, but I'm at least aware of it. You're a diehard Anki user and a Duolingo hater? That sounds fine. Yeah. Sounds like you know what you want. Boros. What about WaniKani, Boros? Do you have any experience with WaniKani? There is a relationship between WaniKani, Hanzihiro, and Anki, by the way. And it's dealing with the very mechanical thing that most people like WaniKani or like Anki for, yet they are unaware how coding works and promiscuous coding is between various apps. You use both Duo and Anki? Yep. Very nice. Very nice. Oh, which by the way, you can be a hater and still use a product. I'm just saying. That's actually quite admirable to try to find value in something that you dislike. There's a lot of practical uses for that type of skill set. You've heard of WaniKani, but I don't even know what it is, honestly. Never used. It's Anki. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. That's being awfully generalizing. It's having a friend while using Anki. Sorry. That's the last one. Last one. It is Anki with mnemonics created by someone who really, really likes other people to learn Japanese. That's probably the shortest answer I could use to relate to someone that is a diehard Anki fan and a Duolingo hater. It's Anki with a personality. Yeah, I'm using Duolingo to dip your toes into Russian, but I'm still a Duolingo hater. Yep, there you go. Perfectly fine. The idea is your hate and your dislike is based on experience. I think that makes it possible to talk to people. There is very different talking to someone who has a preconceived notion without experience. That is something that rarely I would engage in any deeper conversations with because that person's not open to any new experiences. When someone says, I hate this thing, and then you ask them, so how long have you used it? 5 minutes. I'm like, well, I can't really help you there. There's nothing I can give intellectually for someone who can create that type of judgment right away. You think Duolingo is good for an introduction to languages? I agree. I tend to agree. It's very difficult. Like, I'm not saying there aren't people out there to be able to talk like that. Like, if you meet someone like that, hopefully your relationships are great. For myself, when someone says they hate something, I hope they understand why they hate Duolingo. For example, bros, like, have you, we can talk about all the circumstances, all the things, so then you can like something for what it is and then hate something for what it is. You know what I mean? Like, it's very different from someone telling you that you should hate this and therefore you hate this. That's the type of person that I cannot speak to too often because on the fear that I have to behave like that in order to talk to them. Like, someone who believes in something without experiencing it means that I would have to present an idea enough that they would believe me without experiencing it. That's how they interact with information, right? And I'm not that kind of person. I don't like gaslighting people in order to get their attention. So you either tell me why you hate Duolingo and not say, well, it's not that serious, I don't think about it very often, I just feel it, then we're not the same type of people, right? I have my dislikes and likes as well. However, we can talk about it because usually we're open to experiences. Talking about something you hate is a different experience than hating someone for doing something you're not doing, right? If I like Duolingo, you don't necessarily have to hate me for liking Duolingo. You still hate Duolingo, and I don't need to hate you for hating Duolingo. We both have different experiences and preferences, and we can describe them and adequately enough so that the other person understands, right? Like, for example, someone says they hate Duolingo because they don't explicitly explain grammar points. And I'm like, that's understandable. I totally agree. If that's a deal breaker, I can totally imagine how you would hate Duolingo, right? To be fair, I feel once you use Duo for a language, whether you like it or not, it's incredibly intuitive to dip your toes in other languages, like doing the first 5 to 10 levels in a dozen languages. And guess what? Gecko, Boris, Tone. Guess what? That is exactly what the CEO of Duolingo said. That was their idea. So if someone said, like, you know, the tagline that people always focus on, Duolingo is the best way to learn Japanese or best way to learn Chinese. You see those ads like in the search, but they're not talking about the best way to become fluent in Japanese, the best way to become advanced in Japanese. They're talking about getting people to learn a language. Like, one of the ways to intuitively get someone to learn a language is to show up. And then the rest is history. They can leave Duolingo if they want. The idea was, as I might paraphrase the CEO of Duolingo, he has this vision of getting people addicted to learning. They didn't say what. Get learning. What is the hardest thing that faces people most of the time? Getting them to consistently start new things after they complete another thing. So if you talk to a Duolingo person, oftentimes the people who stick with it, they don't say that they became advanced. They don't celebrate that they became advanced or fluent in a language. They talk about their interest in many things. And that captures the spirit of the design. Not to try to tell you a little bit about what I gleaned from interviews from the CEO. And as much as I would say I overall prefer WaniKani to Duo, for example, any comparison becomes moot on that front. It really does, because of WaniKani's design. Yeah, fundamentally two different tools. I think a tool is only hated when it makes users feel difficult and want to give up every time they come back to use it, provided that he or she is not affected by criticism of tools from social. Yes, that's an excellent point. Subconsciously, or not subconsciously, psychologically, that is a very excellent consideration for design cues, for social consideration when it comes to learning material. Like live service models is what I talk about most of the time because I play live service games. If you find that it costs you something, right? If something you're voluntarily using and you are also paying for it, if that product is costing you emotional stress to use it, that ultimately leads to the generation of the idea of hate and anger and stuff. Now, the question is, oftentimes when people try to evaluate products based on this feeling, is the feeling self-controlled and self-aware, or is it propagated by exposure, which you've mentioned? One of them is affected by a tool from social, right? There is a lot to be said about the nocebo effect by exposure, and then a lot to be said about a hatred that is self-aware, but also when one is self-aware, they can tolerate. So you could use a product in which you are self-aware that you dislike, but you like it for what it is, and you also hate it for what it is. That is far more than someone who's caught in an emotional distressed cycle where, and this would be considered predatorial then, to lock someone into a vicious cycle. That's a dubious thing, right? Like gacha games and stuff. There are levels where it can be predatorial, which the person unknowingly to themselves can be locked into a habit that promotes an unhealthy habit. So there's, I only highlighted like 3 of like 7 or 8 more common scenarios with these type of things, especially app design. However, yeah, lots of things to consider. Duolingo does its job well then. It certainly does in that case. Yes. Or the founder. The founder, I have not found any idiosyncrasies that is incongruent with what the founder says. The founder did not ever say something like, this is the one-stop shop for you to become advanced in a language. The founder said something like, you can speak phrases, you can mirror and imitate phrases in order to get yourself speaking something. They didn't say you were going to have a fluent conversation talking about your feelings and whatnot. Actually, they didn't even mention anything about like going to a secluded country and being able to communicate solely in that language. They actually said, he said along the lines, oh, people go to travel and they need to learn a couple of useful phrases very quickly, and engagingly, so that it's like a low barrier to start when they go traveling. Those are the examples that the CEO often cite, and that's usually how much you get right away from Duolingo. You get arigatou gozaimasu, right? Ohayo, konbanwa, right? And then, sushi o kudasai, right? So that's kind of what it does. And that fits, You love playing tech support to people? Can you remind me, Blair? Sorry. I got into a rant too far. What was that in response to? You like playing tech support to people? I like playing tech support to people. Even though I gotta tell them that I probably know very little about the tech that I'm supporting. Oh yeah, I find it interesting when Duo recently added music and math course. Haven't tried them yet, which makes sense with its focus on learning other things. Language per se. Yes, music is a language. So is math. I don't know if people think of it that way, but what is a language? It's a form of communication, right? And I know it's have other different fundamentals, but when you communicate to people through music and math, right? In fact, they might as well just do like a introductory Python course. I'm expecting this, by the way. I left field. In the next 2 years, there's going to be a coding language on Duolingo. There's a primer starting coding language. I can kind of see it happening. Oh, which by the way, for music, their next thing is they're going to release a makeshift input device for music as an introduction to keyboard. So they want to release a product. Yes, it's a product, so it supports the business model, but they want to release a product that allows you to engage with the music. So it can be a bridge to spatially and, you know, tentatively, and then I can already see the criticisms. They're gonna say, you know, the hardcore critics are gonna say, well, that's just an overpriced keyboard. Why don't you just buy a keyboard and then link the inputs to Duolingo? It's like, well, yes, you can make that product. Go right ahead, right? The reason why I feel like this is going to happen is I still remember when Rocksmith came out as a follow-up to like Harmonix's Guitar Hero. Rocksmith tried to make it so that you can connect any electronic guitar to their software so that it can encourage people to learn how to play guitar, right? And lots of the criticisms is like, well, it's not like the real thing. I mean, if you're going to play a game with a real guitar, you might as well learn how to play a real guitar like real people. What does this dialogue kind of sound like? Oh yeah, that's right, Duolingo. I'm being a little facetious, but I feel like I have maybe around 50 to 60 core skills, and my journey through these 50 to 60 core skills, it went through these cycle all the time, and I have not achieved a level of mastery in the vast majority of my skills. So those individuals will always be someone that I feel I lack empathy towards. So playing the guitar, the violin, bowling, disc golf, right? Disc golf, running, obstacle course running, calisthenics, right? Singing, movie directing, visual effects, digital artwork, like the list goes on, and it's going to happen predominantly. Now, do I have to be upset about it? No, not really, because I can use my experience to say what I can't empathize with. I can't empathize with someone who has a level of mastery of guitar, right? Or language learning. But it's not the first time I've been through this rodeo. So I can present myself as, sorry, I lack understanding, and it's probably not going to happen, versus, oh, you will never understand, for some, like, you could go that route, which typically is very non-conducive to the purpose of streaming. It's goes really deep. MIL was having an issue logging into Facebook. My mother-in-law or my in-law was having an issue logging into Facebook on new phone. It kept forcing her into an old account. It wouldn't let her log out at all. The delete this autosave login from this browser button was hidden like 5 menus deep. Oh yes. Depending on which browser you're using, it's at least 5 menus deep. Largely because when you accidentally delete your browser history or like logins, that creates a more negative response. So they make it a little difficult. They add extra steps to deleting the autosave. A lot of times people think, why don't you make the task that you have the most convenient thing, right? And then you have to ask yourself, why do they bury it 5 menus deep? Because oftentimes, if it's one click away, imagine accidentally deleting your autosave logins by 1 click away. You know, that happens too. It's great that you were able to find the 5 menus deep to delete autosave login from the browser. Blair, that is certainly one way to. I want to try the music course. I hope it teaches how to read sheet music. I'll have to check it out. I saw a demo of it, and it does teach sheet music, which is fantastic. Oh, you're heading off to bed? I think people should read sheet music. It's so wonderful. It's a language in itself. It's so fun to read sheet music, in my opinion. I had an underappreciation for sheet music for a while until I got older. Sometime when I started playing the guitar and trying to learn how to read guitar tabs, I'm like, yo. Good night. Good night, Gecko. Yeah. You have no work tomorrow? Nice. Enjoy your break. Mata ne. Oyasumi nasai. Gecko-san. Husband have been trying for an hour with nephew's help. Oh. Aren't we a little smug today, Blair? And you just came in and spent like 2 minutes? The first purchase you almost ever made was a violin? You almost ever made? Have you made a violin purchase since? I think it's so difficult. I just learned the songs and memorized them themselves. That sounds fantastic, having such a high ear acuity. You already learned Japanese, you know? Or was it Chinese? I don't... Wait, which one are you learning right now? Probably Japanese, right? And then you're dipping your toes in Russian. I think now is a great time to learn sheet music. Sheet music is impressively approachable, knowing all the different approaches that you're using for language learning. I actually think it is a very excellent pivot for Duolingo to teach math and music, because they are fundamentally languages, in my opinion. Obviously, this is only personal, and I hope that other people may choose or find how to empathize with me, but reading a sheet music is like reading a sentence. I've always seen it that way for a lot. You did band in school, but you're pretty sure you forgot how to read sheet music. Wouldn't it be a wonderful time to revisit to see what you have forgotten but still know, and then now you get reinforced in what you know? I haven't tried music and math yet, and I honestly don't know what the learning sheet music industry is like. Are you feeling me about what Duolingo is doing? Like, here's the thing. If their music course is pretty shoddy, like it's like, oh, it's very basic and stuff, the only way someone would find out it's too basic for them is they're going to use it. And when they use it, they have a lot of criticisms. What happens after that? They go and find how to learn sheet music even more. And if you think about it, that is the original. That's what Duolingo was designed to do. So, hey, I know you eventually, lots of people develop a hate for Duolingo for not being detailed enough and hardcore enough. But generally speaking, it's a step in the process. So anything that's deficient in Duolingo, I tend to try to raise the self-awareness. Like, what do you think is deficient in Duolingo? And then go find it, right? The most important thing is you stepped your foot through the door. And that was what I like to echo, that the CEO says over and over again. It's like his catchphrase. You're getting people to start to do something. If you don't show up, you don't learn anything. So the product is to get you to show up. And once you show up, the rest is history. If you care about it, you're eventually going to outgrow everything. So why not start with Duolingo to outgrow Duolingo first, right? If you end up starting with Duolingo and you outgrow Duolingo, job's already done. They probably already got like a few subscriptions out of someone, and it's like a teacher in elementary school. I can only teach you elementary school curriculum, but the idea is you're going to hate me if you know more than me. You're going to find it boring, but the thing is, at least you know now that what you know, it's boring and you can move faster. And I hope your future teacher will provide that. Or you go on and do even better things or whatnot. And if you're behind, I'm here. That's the continuum of education. Viewing things from beginning to end within one product, again, like I reinforced to echo, is a fallacy in evaluating language learning. Language learning is a process that goes beyond a singular product. when you play a video game, your experience doesn't have to go beyond the product. It's not designed in that way. However, you yourself can make it go beyond that product. And I do that inherently. Not everyone else does, though, right? Other people do not. When a game ends, it ends. When a story ends, it has to have an ending so that you can feel closure and has an end. I like movies that don't have endings. I like books that don't have endings because the ending is me. I carry that experience and the impact of that story to the future stories. So being self-aware of what you're used to, that can be a helpful thing. I have no qualms that Duolingo has millions and millions of users, and those millions and millions of users will not all will move on from Duolingo at some point. And they're varied moving ons. Some move on with a bad take on it. That's fine, because that badness went to reinforce all the things Duolingo isn't designed to do. So that's great. They went to learn Japanese better and so on. That's fine. Or they take it for what it is. You got your step through the door, you use it until you got bored, and you moved on, right? Now, there are differences. I haven't talked about the bad, quote unquote, the other thing. If you have someone locked in without self-awareness, then that can be a problem, right? Someone who thinks or expects the product to do something that is not inherently designed to do. Now, there are bugs. The product could be designed in a way where someone is saying it's designed to do this, but it doesn't do it at all. And that's perfectly a valid criticism. I personally, I didn't get any of that impression. I don't think there's a singular language learning app that suggests or promised literally more than it was legally able to promise, with even some gray area in English. So at the moment, there isn't anything that I could say visibly is a scam. Yet, it doesn't stop individuals who lack self-awareness and lack a larger perspective to review products as scam because they expected something that wasn't written, in my opinion. Not all the individuals who know this. There are plenty of reviewers and people who do take this into account. The ones that are most viral and create the most turbulence are individuals who I have more questions than information coming from their takes, right? The first okay, it was money down on a pawn shop. So first purchase proper was a computer instead. Ooh, that's a great investment. All right. Leave it up to Gecko. Leave it up to Gecko for some really, really deep things. I think Gecko sounds like a very, very adorable father figure. Yeah. Again, I don't have kids, but I think the most closest empathy or connection I have are typically father figures at this point. I'm around that age, right? I mean, I'm actually past that age. Usually at this point in my generation, I should start being considering like a child who's entering into high school, right? If we were taking the statistical average kind of situation. But man, I see we're gonna stop talking about this in the interest of time, but if there's ever an opportunity to get someone to be aware of why they hate things and why they like things, I take every opportunity possible. I don't think life can be very long, but I don't think life is long enough to spend most of your time hating or like not understanding yourself, right? I think that's something life is. not long, it's just not long enough. Spending time hating something, but you don't know why you hate it. And then liking something because you don't know why you like it. And you just do it. Just do it. All right. I promise I'll get through this review cycle. All right, what is this construction, right? Erie entrance Gucci. Drop on the sun is white. Two things. Pass. Converge. Not converge. 7 nanas. Although you would use Hito, but I mean not yeah, you would use Nin, right? Or Hito. Or Nen. Nin. Wait, did I get that yet? I'm starting to think I don't know what the mnemonic or the maybe I don't have it yet. Can't think of a mnemonic. It could be a pass. Pass. Gun and cross. Oh, the cow. The poor cow. Shooting a cow. Legs. Enclosure. So oh no. They want to be I'm gonna use isolated. It's not isolated, but private. Yeah. That's an English problem. So private. Okay. That's a synonym problem. Oops. Don't give me those hyphens, Blair. Knee, that's a pass. Bow. This is slide with barbs. And it takes talent from a cyborg. Pass. Ground. Oh, good. The mnemonic was like input with all enter with all of your strength. Right. But what was the mnemonic for the Input with all your strength. So I don't know what the key word is at the moment. Yeah, like nothing at all. So we'll just enter this. Oh, new locks. Yeah, that one is tough. Yeah, that one is really, really far out there. Maybe a little too far for me. So I think I might go and change this mnemonic a little bit. I think as a person who's inputting things into the computer, you are trying to unlock new locks of your career. You are trying to unlock new locks on the career ladder or the career door, right? So I'm going to integrate mnemonic with doors, opening new doors with new locks in one's career in computer science. I think this needs more. Okay. Drop. Out. Water. Hotel. I hope sooner or later I'm gonna end up typing hoteru instead of using the L. Sooner or later, it's gonna happen. Probably. This is a pass. Right, pass. Pass. It's not pass. It's exit. Oh no, it's not exit. Oh yeah, it is exit. Not pass. That's red, or that's pink. Oh boy. Vocabulary. Wait. Oh, we're back to this. So new opportunity doors. Oops. New locks. New locks on opportunity. Psy. Or cyborg. Input. Vocabulary. Close mouth. Oh wait. No. This is kuchiko. Oh, it's a radical. Okay, vocabulary. I think this is a pass. Yep. So hachi. 力いっぱい。What was this? Mountain exit? Yeah, mountain exit. So, yes, mountain exit. Radical. Whoops. Pass. How did mountain exit work? Oh, trying to desperately find the mountain exit and then only to be shot at by a hunter. Shoot me, right? To me. Or got shot? Tutu. Oh. Chu. Jutsu. Yeah. That one's a little Shutsu. Shutsu. Through the legs. Yeah. Knocking you down. Okay. That one's a little yeesh. This is Converge. Kisa. To go up. To elevate. Yeah, I think to go up is fine. To climb. So I was like, what else is go up? To climb. Oh no, I have problems with this too. Not powerful. It's with all one's strength, as hard as you can. With all one's strength. This is a pass. Nar. Lily pad. Moon. Sun. Say hi. Yachts. Yatsu. Oh no. Huh. Hmm. Oh, it's oh boy. No, no boy. No boy. Noboru. I'm like, what the heck is the mnemonic for this one? It's no boy. Noboru. Sword. Altoner. Oh, tuna. Minecraft. It's not Minecraft, it's SpongeBob. Brother Steve. It's even the same color. Brother Steve. Like the background color of the t-shirt. Brother Steve's t-shirt. Or shirt, or whatever the shirt is. It's kind of hard. Oh, a button shirt, I suppose. What are we doing? Oh, tuna? Otona. Sun. Enter. River pass. Whoops. Oh wow. Oops. Oh, 2 enter. Oh yeah. Don't forget the 2. Fair enough. Schmol. Right, Schmol. Weird looking hand. Noma. Oh, whoops. Repeater. Pass. Stop. Noma. Pass. Ah, it's prison! It's prison! Cage, prison, whatever. Whatever. Whatever, co. Whatever. Pass. This is Yama. Oh, wait. Yeah, this is Yama. The vocabulary. Where this is the kanji, so MAKU. What was for MAKU? I think it's MAKU, but I don't remember the mnemonic. Oh, the trees are mocking you, right? MAKU. Mocking you. Okay. Dang. Artificial. AI, guys. AI. That's not the mnemonic though. Cheated? No. Or are they going with, oh, this is 7 for either. We can use either. So Nana or Shichi. Jinko. How did they go about Jinko? Oh, man-made. Something doesn't grow on trees. I don't remember what doesn't grow on trees. Oh, wait. I genuinely do not remember the mnemonic for this. Oh, genes don't grow on trees. Oh, okay. To pick which, either gene or yin. Yeah, I just think artificial intelligence is good enough. Evan, the two levels of people. It's level 2. Wait till they get to Super Saiyan level 3. All right. Okay. 1, 7. Pass. Prison. 1 review. All right. That wasn't too bad. I mean, outside of my 1.5 hour digression, it took 1 hour. Probably less. We could probably do it quicker. We're getting our context clues or our mnemonics down to shorthand verbalization. Whoops. Oh, this is read. Me. Right. Me. Oh, each item counts as each permutation of it. Oh, okay. I was wondering what that counter in the top right would mean. It's all the permutations of 1 entry. So they count the literal entry. I see. Does this all count as 1? I see. Oh, stranger danger. It's not really a big deal. We immediately know what it was, so not that big a deal. Okay, So this is a complete review day, right? Complete review day. Not bad, not bad. So let's review. I'm still unsure how I'm going to do the vocab part of the review at the moment. I think Hanzahiro and WaniKani has like half and half of an organization that's ideal for me. So we're going to have to supplement or complement how we're going to do this. Maybe like doing it this way. So what do we do here? This was exit. Mountain. Exit. So don't type mountain, right? So it's mountain. Exit. Into jutsu. This one. It's enter All Might. Enter All Might. Computer science job. New Roku. Oh, that's not what I'm looking. New Roku. And this one is fundamental. So row memory. Prison. Not prison, private. I guess inherently we're gonna end up correcting mistakes for the most part, right? That's probably what we're gonna do. Because I anticipate this will come up more often, and it's a little bit more manageable. So private and not isolate. I use isolated. Gotta be careful with our English here. Yeah, that's about it, really. I would love to be able to like move these boxes, like, you know, move the boxes. I would love to move this box like either here or underneath, because these levels, I think this being at the very bottom is sufficient. Largely because this is a tally. Tallies being at the bottom seems like a natural flow of things. I like these things to be up here, so then I could view this window with this, and ideally the other windows, but that's fine. And with that, let's keep trusting the system. I think we're gonna dispense with writing a little bit. Continue dispensing with writing. What were our new unlocks? At least write our new unlocks. So our new unlocks are it took me a while to get this one too. This is no boy. No boy. Ageru is BBZ. Way. Ue. Fujisan is in the name, so Fujisan is a pass. That's not too bad. Yama is yams. Oh, I forgot to say yams. There's Ohio. So Ohio, which is Ohio. Not related. We also have Hoteru, our first katakana. Hote do. Self-explanatory. I think that's it. So we have a bit of a weak spot. I should start writing down. So in the next couple days, I will start writing down anything that I'm pausing on, because that may be a little bit more where I should focus when I pause on things. The mountain thing is rough, and the lock, the input is rough. I think those are the two biggest. Let's double check. This one's fine. Maru, Cat, Maru, Calmant, Cyborg. Dok's fine. 6. Dok. Rock and roll. I like this one. Nichi? Oh, Nichi is kind of rough. Although, Nietzsche does help. And then, Jitsu. G, 2 reads, Jitsu. Yeesh, that's the second one's rough. How did I screw up Ki? Ki got stuck, right? Moku, right? Moku, oh, mocking, Moku. Moku was a little rough. We covered exit, right? Exit's down here. This one's fine. Let's quickly look up here. In our radicals. Check. So let's cover them really quickly. Water, dirt, sword, Norwal, street, legs, head, treasure, 1000, evening, child, small, bow, flag, hair, 5, heaven, and writing, moon, stop, leaf, fire, dog, king, middle, book, rice paddy, white, eye, stand, cow, and private. So that's fine. Very, very quick, right? This is pretty much why SRS is a reliable process for isolated words, right? It's a very comfortable feeling. It's a technique that I use without literally doing flashcards. So, in fact, after saying that in this order, if I say it in order like four or so times, I can probably say all the radicals in the order they appear from left to right. That's how I used to memorize things, where you would take a grid. So after you get really used to it, right? The first day you learn a bunch of things and you put them in a grid. And then the second day you'll learn them again in that same order. And then the third day you can probably list them in that order, or at least I would list them in that order. And then one day when you're looking for something, you have to rearrange all the things so that you can do like isolated looks, right? Like you imagine it in your head. Like, oh wait, what are all my radicals? So like one way to organize this in the future is radicals that share clustering. But I don't know how far they're going to go with this. I don't think they're going to go that far, where they would group the mnemonics and or shape or what they look like into groups that are close together. So for example, you could place like barb and slide next to each other or far apart, right? They're placing I next to white is kind of helpful next to moon, right? You can see that this is no particular order at the moment. So in my head, I would typically place them in some sort of grouping as I go. But for now, let's trust the system because random is kind of nice too. It forces it requires more effort. However, the effort goes a long way to making them look be interpreted as distinctive parts. So there is kind of a practical use for that type of thing. And it's pretty clear that I have no problems remembering like the mnemonics. And the mnemonics have already been reduced to a single English word. And for kanji, we're reducing it to maybe a phrase, like a 2-word phrase. And for a vocabulary, we're going to probably do associations, like sentence associations in the future. Those different levels so I can partition them. Like when I see blue, I immediately think of a single word mnemonic. When I think of kanji, I think of word phrases, like two-word phrases. And then when I think of vocabulary, I put them all together to try to create a mnemonic that connects all the characters. That's probably what we're going to do to cluster the things. On top of, if I see blue, that's what I do. If I see red, that's what I do. If I see purple, that's what I do. And then yeah, it doesn't look like Doku is a radical. So it's not a radical pass, right? It's not a pass from a radical. However, Doku is a pass from this to eventually, right, the read is what I'm saying. So you need to know 6 in order to get to Doku. Is what I'm saying about that pass. So you have to pass through a previous knowledge from the other thing to get there. Most of these kind of do. Like, for example, you need to pass mountain. You need to pass mountain through this. Which I didn't do at first. And then you need to know about the shooting, right? The shooting between your legs and the hunter thing. The desperate need to get out of the mountain. So that means you have to pass. I don't even think mountain is on here. Yeah, mountain is on a different list. So they remove the previous list, which can be a little organization nightmare. Just a little bit. I could kind of see it. You got some organized chaos here. All right, folks. That's a wrap for WaniKani today. We had some excellent commentary. It's commentary, not advice, not suggestions. Hopefully. I don't know. I'm going to keep saying that. I know it sounds like a broken record. However, practice makes perfect. And also, you cannot expect other people to watch things in its entirety. The normalization is whatever they see. That means other things don't exist, right? So it's I'll do my due diligence and reiterate that most of my conversations are dealing with the people I'm talking to specifically. So occasionally I will use generalizations, and those are generalizations based on vicarious experiences and knowledge from other people. They are not my experiences, nor do they reflect my definitive opinion, nor are they actual facts. They are observations and they are opinions, right? So, not take it with a grain of salt. I am far more, without saying too much, I am debatably equally, if not more, critical of owning and being responsible for what I say in terms of professional advice and or fact disseminating. Like, I'm not disseminating facts. We're talking about observations of human behavior, typically is in the realm of opinions. I typically look and try to focus on evaluating things through the lens of a person, as opposed to the lens through a person trying not to be a person. In my opinion, there's lots of wonderful resources now, like categorically. Like, for example, for Japanese, a dictionary contains all the objective knowledge that you could possibly want with minimum invasion of a human touch. Go for it. When you keep talking about efficiency, objectivity, and whatnot, pick up a dictionary, read it from beginning to end, and hope you memorize it. And you don't need a human touch for that, in my opinion. However, for me, the human touch is what breathes life into most things. If you hate something, I would love to know what are the reasons that you hate something. Investigating and discussing and being able to express these things, one can not only circumvent something that they might not be aware of, but it also encourages them to talk to other people who differ. And through contrast and comparison, one can also gain more insight into themselves as well as the other person. So that's kind of what we do here. And that's kind of what we spend another extra 2 hours doing, right? Dealing with language learning, exposure. This is all the results of picking up a new language. I could say, with a grain of salt, this will still happen in video games. However, then we're talking about different pre-selection, right? I can say from personal experience that these conversations are not reciprocated. I'm usually doing monologues to myself, self-dialogue. Whether people are here or not, I still continue to check myself all the time for self-awareness, motivations, and whatnot. However, it's refreshing as one is learning, right? Like, very apparently learning something which people consider as a usual learning experience, that you get a higher opportunity to engage with people who differ in opinions while still able to experience and collectively share intellectual experiences and expression. It's significantly more, however, on a magnitude scale, still quite rare. So, for example, it went from maybe 2% to like 15%. That's substantial when you're comparing it to what gaming is. However, it's not, in a bigger scheme of things, usually I'm used to an environment where like 1 out of 2 people will have an analytical ability and a self-aware ability to either defend their case, explain things in a manner that is sufficient to reach an understanding, and it leaves me with a lot of trust and mutual respect. You get my respect for existing and having opinions. That respect is for other people to lose, because ultimately I want to treat most humans with a level of respect that says that they are aware of what they like and dislike, and hopefully they know how to express it. Respect is lost when they project something without being able to explain it to me, and then, try to impart their expression of their interest and dislikes and likes onto me without being able to express it, right? Ultimately, that is very, very close to gaslighting. Very close. where you convince someone something is true without explaining why it's true. It's not the same, but when you keep saying you hate this thing and I have no idea why you hate this, it doesn't increase my ability to understand why you hate it other than you accept that, right? And then I am made to believe that I have to believe that is the only acceptable outcome. And that's kind of where I was leaning towards. I tried to acknowledge that and move on, because generally speaking, it is very difficult to bridge that. Maybe not the most appropriate platform to be doing something like that. So, and that happens most of the time. I would say 9 out of 10 times. That's kind of how that happens. You were messing with monitors. Didn't realize Sam has sat on the keyboard. Oh, that's where the hyphen comes from. Well, hi. Sam swapped up. Oh, wait. Sam decided to use hyphens. Nice. Godiva is hitting that. Oh, but Sam's got the hyphen on dial. Nice. Okay. We're starting to see a trend. Let's keep track of it. A trend of 1, sample size of 1. Alright, folks. That's it for WaniKani. We are only here interested in Japanese learning through WaniKani. Thank you. If you're gonna watch this later, arigatou gozaimasu, right? Until then, mata ne, ja ne, minasan. I am gonna get up, take a quick bathroom break. I'll be back with Hanzo Hero.